We'll do a review in Lekutei Sichas in Chelek Tes Vov. This is the fifth Sicha for the Parshas Noach. It's a Rashi Sicha. The Rebbe explains the last Rashi in the Parshas Noach, in which the Pasuk discusses their Vayomos Terach Bechoron. Terach died Bechoron. Rashi brings down that the word Bechoron has a upside down nun to indicate that this brings that up till the time of Avraham, there was charein af ba'olam, there was anger of Hashem in the world until the time of Avraham. And the Rebbe goes through all the details in this Rashi and the meaning of it. And eventually the Rebbe also explains why is it important to us to know that there was anger at the world until that time. It was kind of obvious from the Pesukim itself that the people were Rishoyim, and the Rebbe explains because they had the long life, and the Torah wants to emphasize that notwithstanding the fact they were living long doesn't mean that they had merits. It only means that for whatever reason Hashem has, it's charein af. The Rebbe will also bring out the idea that the 26 generations were nizunim b'chazdei of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there's a difference between the 20 and the 6th generation. That we'll see inside. We'll go with the Sicha, we'll do step by step in Noach Hey. So, Aleph, beim Seif von der Sedre, in the end of the Sedre, stellt sich Rashi auf ein Wort Bechoron. So Rashi places himself on the words, it says Bechoron, Vayomos Terach Bechoron, died Bechoron. Und is mefarish, and Rashi says Hanun Hafucha. What exactly the Nun Hafucha means? Actually, in our Sefer Torah, we don't have it, but Rashi says the Nun over here is Hafucha. The Rebbe in the Ha'aretz explains, brings down different commentaries, but the Rebbe explains what it means is it's a regular Nun Seifis, a langer Nun, Bechoron, an end Nun, as it learned, but it's upside down, which means the Yud, which is normally on top of the stick of the Nun Pshuta, Nun Seifis. In this case, it's on the bottom. So it's just like taking something and turning it upside down. That's how the Rebbe learns in the Ha'aretz, and that's also follows the explanation as the Rebbe will explain later on in the Sicha. So Rashi says that the Nun over here in Bechoron is upside down. Why is it upside down? This is to tell you that Ad Avram Charen Av Shel Mokoim Ba'olam. There is a version that says also Ba'olam, but means that until Avram there was anger of Hashem in the world, and that's why it's Choron also means Charoin means anger, as the Rebbe will explain now this whole Rashi. And also later on, the Rebbe will also explain why Rashi emphasizes Charoin Af versus just saying Adavrom Charoin Shel Mokim Ba'olam, because in the Pasuk it says Bechoron, but Rashi says Charoin Af. So what exactly does this mean? So the Rebbe goes through now to explain the Rashi. The Pshat from them is, what's the simple meaning of this Rashi is nit as the Nun Hafucha meant Ad Avrom Charoin Af Shel Mokim. It's not that a turned over Nun means, that's the meaning of a turned over Nun, that there is the anger of Hashem. That's the meaning of the Vorum Vosfara Shaychus Hot der Inyan Nun Hafucha, because what kind of a connection does anger of Hashem have to do with a turned over Nun? No, but what does it mean? What it means is, as the Nun Hafucha kum zum Ramazai, this upside down Nun is coming to hint to us As oiser dem poshet und teich von Bechoron. Besides the simple translation of the word Bechoron, Terach died in Choron, in the city of Choron, in der Stadt Choron, the city of Choron. Hat der Wort noch an Inyan? This word has another idea of Teich, another translation. The Bandeitung von Charoin Af. It has also Vayomos Terach Bacharoin Af, where there is anger. Was Farashayches hat der Inyan von Charoin Af to them posik. So what's the connection? The anger of Hashem. How is this connected to this verse by Yom Terach? Is Rashi Mefarish as Biz Avrom and is given Charein Avshal Moker, that up till Avrom, so it seems like when Terach dies, then starts the period of Avrom. So Yom Terach, Bechoron, he dies while there was a level of Charein Av. Biz Avrom is given Avshal Moker. And that's the Nun Hafucha telling us that Becharein, that it was Charein Av. But why is that Becharein Av have to do with Avram? We should relate more to Terach. We should say Ad Mrs. Terach. Es ist aber nicht verstandig. It's not understood. Rashi's Teich from Wort Becharon, Becharein Av. Rashi translation, if he says the word Becharon means the anger of Hashem, muss doch Masim sein zum Teuchen von dem Posik, that must fit to the context, in the context of this verse. Und im Posik redet sich nicht wegen Avram. The Posik does not talk about Avram, nor wegen Terach, it talks about Terach. By Yomos Terach Bechoron. Terach died in Choron. So for Rashi, so how come Rashi says Ad Avram Charoinaf, until Avram there was the anger? He should have tied this idea of the anger Charoinaf with Terach, and I should have said Vayomas Terach Bechoron, that it was he died while there was still Charoinaf. Why are we saying it to Avraham up till the Avram there was Charoinaf Shel Moker? But the Rebbe is going to explain in Ois Beis, Rashi can't learn that with Terach's death, there was Charoin Af, because we already learned, the Rashi comes out, according to Rashi, that Terach did Tshuva, and Terach was already 60 years after he did Tshuva. He lived with, while Avram was already publicizing godliness in the world. So we can't say that Terach died b'Charon, because Terach already was not Charein Af when he died. The Rebbe explains, let's look inside base. Is the beer in the explanation? About the Posik zogt Vayomos Terach b'Charon, that Terach died in Charon, is men soll lernen as the Charein Af shel Mokim is given of Terachim. If we should say that the anger of Hashem was on Terach, wollt man doch gemus sagen, then we would have to say as the Charein Af of him is given bis zu sein Misa, that the anger on Terach was till the time of his death. By Yom Terach b'Charon, b'Charein Af. Oh, but as I cannot learn them, we can't learn so. But Lloyd Rashi's Shita, according to Rashi's view, hat Terach Tshuva getan allein man far sein Tod, that Terach did Tshuva a long time before his passing. The Rebbe muss Rashi lernen, that's why Rashi has to learn, as der Charein Av shel Mokim was his merumes in the Posik, that when it says here, anger of Hashem, that we say in this Posik, by Yom Terach B'Choron, isn't talking about, is not in Shayches with Terach, and it's not connected with Terach. Nor es meint dem Eberstens Charein Af, was is given in Welt Bechlal. it's not specifically terach, but we're talking about there was an anger of Hashem in the world in general, not directed towards terach, because terach taka did shuvah. But the question becomes, the Reif werd over the Shaila, but then the question becomes, in that case, was farat Zusammenhang hat der Charein af in Olam mit Posik Vayamos Terach B'choron? So what is the connection between the anger that Hashem has in the world with the Posik Vayamos Terach B'choron? Terach died with the anger when it's not the Terach, so what is the association? The Charein af hat doch nicht zu tun mit Terach Bazunda. That anger has nothing to do specifically, separately with Terach. Not the world. Especially he did Shuvah before his death. So it's not Terach singled out. So why is the Torah hinting Vayomas Terach B'choron? Avdem Zokt Rashi Ad Avram Chulu. That's what Rashi says to Avram. Those Hota Shayches to Avram. That this Vayomas Terach B'choron is not the Terach, but it has to do with what follows in the next pasuk. Zum Pasuk like noch dem nun hafucha, to the verse that comes immediately after this turned over nun. It says Vayomer Hashem el Avram lech lecha. So there is talking about Avram lech lecha. Das haste, which means mit der nun hafucha in the word b'choron, with the upside down nun in the word b'choron, is the Torah merames, the Torah hints as biz Avram and is given charein afshel moker. It's the Avram was charein afshel moker till Avram. Mit den Ankommen von Avram was his chilahoyer. And then when we come up, when Avram came into the picture, he began to illuminate. He illuminated the world with godliness. V'yeshteit, as the pasuk says, Vayikra Shom b'shem Havaya Keil Olam, that he called there in the name of Hashem Keil Olam. So then the anger has been removed from the world. Okay, so that's how Rashi learns. But just a very important note in the Rebbe brings down, one Rashi, it seems that Terach, Rashi refers to him Sharashoyim, that he was a Rasha. So that means that how does it fit with the Rashi that he did Shuvah? And the Rebbe said that wasn't, the Rebbe brings down in the heart over here that he did Shuvah, but he did it in hiding. But the Emerson he did do Teshuvah, so you can't say, but because they didn't know, so people would say that Avram did not do the honor. The Rebbe discusses this in the Hara. Okay, but the Rebbe says, still, here we're saying that the nun, even though it's a nun hafucha, the anger is to Avram, which is later. Seems a little bit difficult. Gimel, madaf nachaber verstehen. We still need to understand it. Let it be true that after the word b'choron comes immediately, the verse Hashem says to Avram, so Avram follows immediately. As to learn, but it's still difficult to learn as the nun hafucha for b'choron, that the nun opposite nun b'choron, which is in the parshas and the parshas Noach soll sich batziehen zu a weiter dicken posik, is related to a later on posik. But is the beer in them. So the Rebbe explains, a nun pshuta is an ois sofis, a straight nun, an ended nun, versus the nun that is in the middle of a word. That's called a nun pshuta, is the end nun, is a straight nun, is an ois sofis, that's an end letter was unterstreicht a Soif und Ende, that emphasizes, that signifies an end and a completion from Wort, of the word. Und in the Oisius, Soifius, Gufa, and amongst the end words that we have, and Mem and Pei, Hot dem Oizen von Akav Oirich, it has the look, the image of the Nun is like a long line. Was steht voneinander zwei Stodim, that separates two sides. Und in an Eufon von Hefse Gomer, it separates it totally, like there's no way to go through. It's like an end, doesn't allow anything to go through. Unlike a kuf, warum in a nun pshuta is doch nitok kein iberhak. In a straight nun, an end nun, there is no interruption. This is the moshel. I say, for example, do in a kuf. In a kuf, we find between the reish between the reish, the top, and the line that comes under the reish, there is a space. Durch welche man soll kennen durchgehen von einer Seite zum zweiten, from which you can go from one side to the other one. But by the nun, it's totally blocked. It's a separation. Und von dem, was der Teure hat ausgeklebt, Meshane sein, davke dem nun von Bechoren. From the fact that Hashem, that the Teure chose to change specifically, make a change to hint that there's another meaning, the word, the nun of Bechoron, Bigdei zu weisen auf Chorein Af, to show on the anger. So it to specify made a change in the letter nun. Unochmer, nor dem nun. Only we changed the nun. We didn't change anything else in the pasuk. Hat man gedacht, Meshane sein dem ganzen Wort. They should have changed. You should have changed the whole world. Was the whole word? Was is der Wort charoin? The whole word, which is the word charoin. The ubefrat, as the state bekam a mekomis b'teire choser vov, that in many places it says without a vav. So maybe it should have changed the whole word charoin to indicate that change. Is a raye as gleichzeitig werden merume. So that means that we're also hinting, not just making some changes in the word choron, but also as the charoin av vert nifsek basoif der parsha. That means that at the end of the parsha, it is the stop. That's when the charoin av stops, and that's why we have the nun the stop. When the Rebbe learned Rashi, ad Avron charoin av chulu. Up to Avram this charoin av. Bis Avram and until Avram is given charoin av, it was the anger. This is up till Avram becomes un is the nifsek geworden, and there it was interrupted. So basically, the change to hint to charoin av was placed in that nun to tell you that it stops with the end of Parshas Noach. And here we start the new. We start with Avram, and the Rebbe is first going to explain. So when we say a stop, it means that the anger was up till here, and two, it didn't go any further. And Rashi chooses to say that Ad Avram, that it stopped over there, not that there was Hashem's anger up till here. But if Rashi is explaining the Choron, he should explain that up till now there was Choron, versus saying that it stopped and it was no longer by Avram. But Rashi has to bring in Avram, as the Rebbe explained before, because it wasn't by Terach, because by Terach death it's already stopped already. So Rashi therefore brings out it didn't continue in the times of Avram. Let's look inside. Dalet. You can still ask, Hagam as the nun is merumes if I have zwischen zwei Tzdodim. Although the nun is hinting on an interruption between the two sides, and in our matter, zwischen Siyum Parshas Noach und Hascholas Parshas Lech, between the end of the portion of Noach and the beginning of Lech Lecha, seinen doch aber voran zwei Efanim, vezoi arois to bring in them hefsek. There are two ways in which we can bring out this interruption. By specifying, we can talk either about what happened up till the time of the interruption, and we can say what happened after the interruption. Aleph, number one, as the Charein Af is given bizun sim at kufa from Parshas Noach, that the anger was until the end of the period of the portion of Noach. That would mean that Sad Chiyuvi, the positive, that's how long it was going on. As the Charein Afot Gidoyer, that this anger lasted bizdemut until then. Or we can talk about it stopped and it didn't go further. Based as the Charein Af is given Bizund Kufa fun Parshas Lech Lecha, that it was up till the period of Parshas Lech Lecha, then Tzad Shlili, and then we're saying the negative that it stopped over there as Demutot Oivgeher der Charein Af, that the anger stopped then. So the Rebbe wants to ask, why does Rashi use when he talks about the interruption, he uses the second that from Avram it stopped versus saying that the anger was till then. The Baal the Rashi is mefarish. The word Bechoron, since Rashi explains the word Bechoron, so it seems he should have said as in the first way, as the Charein Afot Gitoyer Bizn Siyum Hatkufa from Parshas Noach, that the anger lasted until the end of the period of Parshas Noach. Why does Rashi say up till Avraham and talk about when it stopped, that it didn't go to Avraham? It should have said there was the anger in the whole season of Noach. That is the emphasis Rashi brings down, and where it stopped by Avraham, it ceased the emphasis. Instead of saying that it went on, there was a Charan over there. But the Rebbe explained that you can't learn it that up till there was the Charan, because it's not till Terach's death there was takanada Charan. In Amazon, nobody is asking kashin it. In truth, it's not a question. The Tkufa from Parshas Noach schließt sich mit dem Posuk Vayomas Terach Bechoron. The period of the portion of Noach concludes with the verse Terach dies in Choron. Was misoshel shel Terach, the death of Terach, Rashi is mefarish mit ein dibur freir. As Rashi explains, just the one Rashi beforehand is given mer wie 60 Jahr noch dem wie Avram is gekommen in Eretz Canaan. That was more than 60 years after Abraham came to the land of Canaan. Ubechein ken doch Rashi nicht sagen, as bis Mrs. Terach hat sich gezeugen der Charein Afshel Mokem in Olam. You can't say that until Terach dies, it stretched the time of the Charein Afshel Mokem in Olam. It stretched till the time that Terach died. That's not true, because already Abraham was functioning for 60 years already. Warum, when Avram is gekommen in dem Olam Balachim, when Avram came about and he illuminated the world, then 66 years for Mrs. Terach, minimally 60 years before Terach's death. That Charenaf has already been interrupted. So we can't say, Rashi can't say in the positive that the Charenaf stretched till this point. The Rebbe is Rashi Medayik. That's where Rashi is very precisely says the words Ad Avram Chulu. Der mit unterstreicht, and this way he emphasizes, he points out as der Hefsek von dem Nun, that this interruption of this Nun from the Charein Af, that we say the Charein Af, the Nun, the Hefsek, Gam Eris Berumas B'siyum HaParsha. Even though it's hinted in the end of the Parsha, so it's not really with Terach though. It's written the end of the Parsha. It says, aber nicht verbunden mit dem Zman von Vayomas Terach. It's not associated with the time of Terach's death, nor mit Klolus dikun Zman von Siyum Atkufa. But rather, this is talking about the general time and when the period from Ad Avram up to Avram ended. Not specifically this Terach, because that doesn't fit into that, because he at his death, it was already finished the Charainaf. But Siyum Atkufan Ad Avram, Far Avram, in the Asora Doides, those were the 10 generations that were from Noach to Avram, that only for Tkufa from Avram, and the beginning of the season of Avram, up till that time, there was Charainaf, till Avram came after the 10 generations, and Terach died already in the time of Avram's, the Tkuf of Avram. Okay, so that explains basically the Rashi, the Nun Hafucha, and what it means. It represents an interruption, and it's talking about Avram. The Rebbe explains the Rashi. But then the question becomes, the Rebbe wants to explain now, why is Rashi need to Bechlal tell us, why did the Pasuk have to tell us up till Avram there was anger in the world? I mean, if they were Rishoyim, the Asora Deirus, we know this, and as we read in the Psukim until till Avram, so why need a special remes that there was Charain Af? Hey, as further to beer, this requires explanation. So, both the Torah Bechlal, why does the Torah altogether need to stel nanun hafucha, an upside down nun under Tzelum, as b'meshach the Asora Doides bis Avromen, and to relate to us, tell us that up till the 10th generation of Avram is given them Eibishton's Charein Af Be'olam was the Hashem's anger in the world. This is something which is self-understood. Since they sinned so much, they worshipped Avodah Zarah, as found in the Rashi. Chulu is verstandig, it's understood, as the Eibishter is given nicht zufrieden von Zeir and Hoge, that Hashem wasn't happy with their conduct. Once is given Charein Af Shel Mokem Ba'olam, there was the anger of Hashem in the world. Why does Rashi have to say that? And the Rebbe explains, because they find they lived very long lives. Maybe you can think that there was something about it. Maybe they weren't so bad, and Rashi, that's why we need that emphasis, saying no, that there was Charein Af Shel Mokem. Why they lived is for other considerations. Is the beer in them? So what's the explanation in there? B'shas learned in their parsha, wegen the mention von Yene Deures, when we learn in the portion about the people of those generation, unmezet as meidich yomim given asach mer wie 120 years. You saw that they lived many days more. They lived for a long life, more than 120 years, and the pasuk says that. So that brings the note of the Shana means by the Mabel, but this seems to they had something special. They lived such long life. It's schwer zu verstehen. It's difficult to understand. Wie kommt es? How come as Rishoyim sollen as so viel meidig yomim sein that the evil should live such long lives? So you might have an idea. Notwithstanding the fact that they sin, is a tam, it's a tam shu, but let it be for some reason. The dogma, say for example, am echad v'sof achas l'kulam. There was one people, they had one language. It was the idea of shalom, of peace, of unity. It was shalom. It was kibud av, honoring the Rashi Zogdo, as Rashi says over here, that they would honoring Bagabe Terach. People would say that he didn't honor his father, which means that there was something that they did do over there, honoring the parents. So you have to. So maybe you think the Meibish didn't give in, gefell, nepis, and Zeranoga. There was something about their conduct that was pleasing to Hashem, that He let them live. And He was happy with them, and that's why He let them live long lives. That's why the Torah cautions us and forewarns us and tells us by placing an upside down nun. As the Rebbe is for say given nor nicht zufrieden. Not only was Hashem not happy, nor adrab, on the contrary, says given charein av shel mokim, there was the anger of Hashem. There was an anger of Hashem. We can't say there was nothing redeeming over there. So how come so how could they have such long lives? He says, that was how Hashem wanted this, entered Hashem's will. We don't know the reason, but we do know that there was charainav, there was nothing good about him. Or you can say, by means of pshat, as is verstandig, b'seichel, it's understood logically, as Adam Arishan Yitzur Kapo from the Meibersten, that the first man who was created basically by the hands of Hashem, by Hashem, Darv Zayin, der Meirich Yomim B'Yoser, he should be the one that lives the longest. When Nider Chet Eitzadas, had it not been for this in Eitzadas. Vos Ader Weiter von and as the generation distance from him is bechlal schwacher und nenter tzarichas yomim von unsere Deure. So in generally, it's weaker and becomes closer to the length of our generations. And trying to understand exactly over here. The Rebbe is trying to say what would be the reason for it. That the reason would be because they are still close to Adam Arishin, and that's why. But the Rebbe's language over here is schwach and nenter. But in any event, the Rebbe over here says that the reason why they lived long knows Hashem knows, and but it's not for any good things. That's why the pasuk has to tell us the charein av, that there was still anger. So the Rebbe now brings down in Yena Shel Torah why they actually lived a long life, because they were actually taking from a place from higher of Ishtalshlus, in which the actions of the people doesn't really matter, and you can get Arichas Yomim mitzad the place which is higher than Ishtalshlus from the Seder and the orderly way, the way it comes down normally. But Hagam as Befedish, although that clearly in Derech HaPshat, in the style of Pshat, is do Rashi nit nevayer atam. Rashi does not explain a reason for Vos the Asoro, the 10 generations, that's from Noach to Avram, or Esrim, if we want to also count from Adam till Noach, and then from Noach to Avram. So it's Asoro, Esrim, Deidus, that they prolonged lived long, is a dos over merames al piderach hasoin shebetoyra. So Rashi hints to the, however, to the style of the secret learning, the secret of the Torah. And as we've spoken many times, as in Pirush Rashi is far behalten Yenushal Torah, that in Rashi's commentary is hidden the wine of Torah, the Pnimis Torah. But as Al Zogan, our sage of blessed memory, say, as the Chovvov Doidos Farmaten Torah, the Rebbe is going to explain the hint in the word Charein Af. He's going to explain there's two in Yonim and how the Charein Af represents this level. He's going to say there's two levels of Charein. There's Charein also in the Gorein, and there's Charein in the Af. And Rashi chooses to say Charein Af to hint that this was the generations they lived from a higher level of Ishtalsha, as the Rebbe will explain. Razal Zogun, our sages of blessed memory, say, as the Chov Vov Doides Farmaten Torah, that the 26 generations before the Torah was given after 26 generations. They were fed with the kindness of Hashem. After the Torah was given, we have to work for our sustenance through the observance of Torah mitzvahs. But before the first 26 generations, before the Torah was given, they were nurtured by the kindness of Hashem. Is as mavur in Chassidus, so it's explained in Chassidus as odi doides eine gespeist geworden, that these generations were fed durch the madrege from Chesed shelamayla mishtalshlus, from the step and the level of Chesed which is above Ishtalshlus. Was dorten is, in that level, is im chatoso goyme v'rabu p'shecha matasa loy, as it says in the Pasuk, that if you sinned and you have many sins, you don't do anything to Hashem, it doesn't matter to Hashem. And in tzedakta matitan loy, and if you're righteous, what do you give Hashem? Goymer in the Pasuk there. So basically, it's a place where the Maisa Tachtoinim don't really matter what we do. She's hecher from them as mitzvahs and avedas. It's a higher than this, that whether mitzvahs or avedas all farnemen on earth, that they take up room doesn't mean anything. Und der River, and therefore, kennen von dort the makabel sein chayis afilu over avedas. Over there, even those who violate the sins can get from there. And the Rebbe now says there is also a distinction between the 20 generations and the 6, because here we have 10 and 10 from Adam to Noach, from Noach to Avraham is 20 generations. And then you have later on, till Matan Torah, you have another 6 generations. Razevis da closing an Unterschied zwischen the Chov Devav Deires from far Matan Torah to the 26 generations before Matan und Divos noch Matan Torah, and those that come after Matan Torah. Al derech ze is da achilik proti. There is a more specific distinction in the Chov Devav Deires Gufa within the 26 generations itself. The erste 20 Deures, the first 20 generations, Fardish Nealofim Torah, before the 2,000 years of Torah, which means that even though the Torah was given in 6 generations, but generally we say the second 2,000 year was Torah. It's all so Torah. So the first 20 years, they were fed with Hashem's kindness that comes from above, by the in a way more than the last 6 generations after the 20. And Rashi hints to that 20 by saying Charein Af. Und Odem in is Rashi meramis with the Werter Charein Af. Rashi says Charein Af to show you that comes from the level, as the Rebbe will explain, from the level of Af, was versus the level of Goren. But the Rebbe asked, why does Rashi have to say Charein Af? We can ask, so was darf Rashi meistens sein dem Wort Af? Why does Rashi have to add the word Charein Af? Lois doch negea blois the word Charein. What's important to us here is just the word Charein. Mit welcher verteidigt dem Remes von Choron, with which he translates the hint of Choron. So Choron is Charein. Why does he have to add Aron? Nor mit dem Wort Af, with the word Af. Af is the nose, and that's the smell, which is the level of higher. Nor is berumes der inyan for hoyu nizunim bechazde shalakadosh baruch. That hints to us this concept that they were fed with the kindness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the previous hinted in the Rashi, in the initial Torah. The Bechinas Chesed Shalamayla Meishtalshus. They got it from the Chesed, which is above Ishtalshus. Von Af weist of the Bechina von Oir Shalamayla Meishtalshus Kidul Halon. As we'll see later on, Rebbe will explain that the level of Af represents the light which is higher than Ishtalshus. So, the Rebbe will explain now there is taka the level of Charein Af, and there's also Charein Goren. The Goren is the throat, the drying out of the throat. So there is the Charein of the nose of the Af, and this is the throat. What's the difference? The throat stands in between the head and the emotion, but the nose is above it. And therefore, they represent Lamaila Mishtalshlus the Af, and Hishtalshlus is the Goren, as we'll see. Zayin. Rashi schreibt in Parshas B'Shalach. Rashi writes in the portion of B'Shalach, as Choron is B'Gzeres Chora, that the word Choron comes from the root Chora. And the word und dem Wort Chora gefindt man nicht bloß bei Af. The word Chora, we don't only find by Af, Chora Af, that the nose dried out or got the anger. We also find it as associated with the throat. Via state, as the pasuk says, Nichar Groini, my throat was Chora, was dried out. Rashi teaches Nichar is from Lashon Chora. Der Hals is trocken. That Nichar comes from Lashon Chora, which means the throat is dry. Die zwei Perushim sein voran in the meaning from Choron. Also, when we say Choron, we have both. We have Charein Af and we have Charein Nichar Groini. Vi Rashi teach do. Rashi says Charein Af shel Mokom. That's what Rashi says. That's the Charein. And Choron im hakoilel. But if you have the word Choron and you add one, that's 258. If you have 259, Goren is 259. So if you have Choron with a koilel, so the 2 becomes 259, it equals the bigematria Goren, which is 259. Und Choron is Osios Nochar, the same level as Nichar. Is Merames a Ferninian for Nichar Goreni. So therefore, the word Choron can also represent the idea of the drying out of the throat. The hals is trocken, the neck is dry. Bemele can der Keul nicht durchgehen dem Goren, wer es darf zu sein. So the voice cannot go through the throat as it should. Der Chelek zwischen the zwei Inyonim. What's the difference between the throat and the nose? Goren is a memutza zwischen Reish, Moich und Leib. The Goren, the throat, is an intermediate between the head, which is the brain, and Leib and the heart. Das heißt, it means as the hashpoa von Seichel shememoyach, that flow of the intellect, which is in the brain, was kumt darop in the midas shebelev, which comes down to the emotion in the heart, from the intellect to the heart, geht durch dem Goren, it goes through the throat. Be'ez der Gorn is in a matzav von nichar groini. When the throat is in a situation that the throat is dried out, the lost is not as the ashpos circle. It doesn't allow for the flow of the intellect. So l'rab kumen and levi that should descend into the heart. That's the throat, the goren. Mashenken af, but the nose is hecher von goren. That's higher than the throat. Und der inyan von af is hecher von chokhmah. The idea of the nose, that's higher than chokhmah. Warum chokhmah is reishis hayishtalshelus. Chokhmah is the beginning of the orderly evolution of the shtalshelus. Aber reyach, the nose, the throat, the smell, the nose, the reyach, the length hecher von the shtalshelus, that reaches to higher than the shtalshelus. Und das ist Rashi medaik in unser Posik, and that's what Rashi is specifically says in our verse mit Loshen Charein Af. That here we're talking about the Chorein, not that other Chorein Nichar Groini that's possible, the Charein Af. Though wird nicht gemeint Chorein Meloshen Nichar Groini. Here we're not talking Chorein from the language of Nichar Groini. Since we're talking about the generations that come before the 2,000 years, the first 20 generations, they were nurtured from the kindness that comes from above. Beyond Chochmah is b'meile do nit negeya vos tutzich mit goren. So it's not important here what's going on with the throat versus that is intermediate between chokhmah and lower, but we're talking about we're talking about the af, we're talking about higher. The river is Rashi matgish wegen charein af. The anger of the af was beweist the bechinas ha'oir shalamaylo meishtalshus, which points to the light which is higher than Hishtalshlus. And if them sagt Rashi, and as Rashi says, as Ota Zah Seder, that this order, as over Ritzoyne Zol Mekabel Zayn Dashpoa from the Maila Hishtalshlus, that those who violate Hashem's will should get the flow from above Hishtalshlus, is given blois ad Avram, was only until Avram. Valdos is given a seder from Shnei Alofim Toyu. That was the first 2,000 years, and when there was chaos. But when the 2,000 year of Torah started, is nifse geworden der charein af. Then it ceased. This charein af, getting from the level of higher of Ishtalshlu. The hashpah from the Mailam Ishtalshlu stopped. Demult is geworden the haschola for medida al pitoira. That's when the limitation and the measurement according to Torah, that's when it began. As Allah hashpoes muzen durgein apiacheshbon from seichel haTorah, that all the flows have to go through according to the calculation of the logic of Torah. And the Rebbe says now in Oisches that this also is hinted in the letter of Nun. Nun is 50, which is the Chamishim Shari Bina, which shows in the higher Ishtalshlus. And the same thing is a long Nun, which points that it goes all the ways down. That means it takes from higher Ishtalshlus to the lowest level. Chest. This is Oich der Bir und Tamp Nimi. This is also the explanation and the inner reason for them was der Inyan Fun, this idea, the Ad Avram Chare Nafshel Mokim, the anger of Hashem B'Mokim is Merumas Davki in them Shinui von Anun Pshuta is hinted specifically in the change of a straight Nun, make it upside down, Davki in the Nun. Mit der Haschola von Shnei Alofim Torah, when we started the 2,000 years of Torah with Avraham, which started with Avraham Avinu, is nimshach geworden der Eir Makif in Apnimius. So then the light which surrounds came into an inner. B'shas der Oir Shalamayla Mishtalshel steht in Hamshocha B'Pnimis, when the light which is higher than Ishtalshelus stands in a way that it extends inside, ken von im nit sein kinyanike. There cannot be any nurturing to the outers. When it remains makiv, the 20 generation they can take from makiv, but when that makiv comes down in the pnimis, there could be no nurturing of the outers. Uki yedua, as it's known. As for beginners, makiv shalom ma'ilo mishtalshlus, from the level of makiv which is beyond the shtalshlus, can klippus yonik zayin. The klippus can nurture from there. Nor be'ez der oir light b'beginners makiv. That's only when it remains in a level of makiv. When the oir makiv nimshach b'pnimis, as opposed to when that surrounding oir comes in an inner, verte hashpoa nimshach nor in kedusha, then it only comes down into kedusha. Und das ist merumes in a nun pshuta. That is hinted in the nun pshuta. Was man gefindt in der zwei Unionen, you find the two ideas, were from one extreme to the other extreme. A nun is chamishim, the mispar for nun aleph, the mispar for nun weist of shar hanun, it points to the 50th gate. Was is hecher from ishtalshlus, which is higher than ishtalshlus. And on the other side, the shape, base, in Tzir and Tmuna, the shape, and the image of the nun was yot aregel arucha, that it has a long leg, that points that it goes down very low. So what does it mean, this haste? As der inyan for nun pshuta, that the idea, what is the this straight nun, the end nun, is to mamshich zayin den oir shalamayla mishtalshlus, is to draw down the light which is higher than ishtalshlus, which is the Maila Adin Kates. That's the one that's higher to no end. In Mata Adin Tachlis, and to below, to there's no finish, to bring down from the highest into the lowest. Was dan werd bottle the nikkel clippers. Then it ceases, negates the nurturing to the clippers. Und der Hashpoa kommt on lois lebchinas hakedusha. And that flow comes only to the level of Kedusha. This is mevuer in Lekutei Torah, in dem Inyan, from the Nun Pshuta, was in Uboisid Bokna, as explained in Lekutei Torah, in the straight Nun, in the Pasuk of Uboisid Bokna. As der Tachlis Ha'ilu from Uboisid Bokna, that what is the ultimate elevation, says there in Lekutei Torah, in connecting to Hashem, that highest level, darf man mamshach sein la mata in the nun long, that the bakun should be to the nun. Bis as oich bechinas asiyah zol sein kule kodesh to Hashem. That also the level of asiyah should be entirely holy to Hashem. But dan la yeh yenikli sidra achra b'chitzenu klal. Quoting over there, when it comes down the higher of the highest level of Beisid Bokun to come down to Asiya, so there shall be no nurturing for the Sidra Achra and the Chitzonim at all. On these Shnei Alofim Torah, these 2,000-year Torah, Zayin Hagdoma v'Hachona, it's a reduction and a preparation. So Shnei Alofim Yemei Mashiach, to the 2,000 years of the days of Mashiach, was danvel nimshach veren alle makifim da'ato b'primis. At that time, all of those surrounding lights will come down that are now in the level of makif into a pnimis. Therefore, will be there is Messiah dort in Lekutei Torah, as he concludes in Lekutei Torah. Vesruach hatuma avir min haaretz, that the spirit of impurity I will remove from the land. The B'yis Mashiach Tzidkenu, with the coming of a righteous Mashiach, recording Mamish very soon. And this is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Noach Tov Shin Chav Zayin.